disclaimer, I'm a little under the weather, so just bear with me in case I choke off. But I'm pretty high in Buckley, so I think it should be good. We're really funny and entertaining. Hi, my name is Hira. I work at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. We're Canada's national public broadcaster. How many of you are familiar with CBC? All right, wow, okay, that's great, thank you. Great, so I was thinking about what does customer centricity means for us, and I'll be using the term audience and Canadians to refer to our customers, because that's how we internally think about them, because we're a public service organization, and we're in the business of serving Canadians, because we're accountable to them. So the purpose of CBC's ecosystem, there we go. So the purpose of CBC's ecosystem is to deliver on our public service mandate, which is to inform, entertain, and enlighten Canadians. And we do that because we're accountable to Canadians in terms of the purpose that we serve. We're supposed to be the source of objectivity and truth, and connect the country coast to coast. So that's the kind of vision that we're trying to drive towards. How Canadians interact with us is through a variety of different platforms. So of course, TV and radio that we're all kind of familiar with. Of course, the web, apps, we're on social platforms, connected TVs, newsletters, we have help center, voice assistants, community events, smart watch, we're everywhere. And this is just a glimpse of it. So we're on a variety of different platforms that Canadians interact with us. In order to develop a deeper relationship with them, we need to be serving in the most appropriate way possible on each of these different platforms. And what our research has shown is that Canadians are platform agnostic. They don't really care how or where they interact with us. What they are really interested in is, am I being served well? And what kind of relationship do I have with CBC? So it really comes down to is how do we connect with them on a personal level? So those are all the different platforms that we're on. Now let's talk about all the different touch points, which are the avenues through which the Canadians interact with the CBC. So these are the platforms we talked about. Within all of these platforms, you have different touch points. So if you think about it, our ecosystem just is massive, right? We've got CBC radio, news, arts, sports, kids, television, entertainment, music, comedy, and it keeps going. So we have a lot of different sub-brands, and those are the touch points through which Canadians interact with us. And digital is just a slice of it. So just to paint a picture of how massive our ecosystem is and how people are interacting with us. And what's challenging is that how do you possibly serve an entire nation, right? And that's what we're trying to always learn. So when we think of connectivity, our content is what connects us to our audience, right? When we know our audience doesn't really think about platform, how we're serving them is through the content that we create. So in terms of content and the connectivity that around it, we have to think about, first of all, where does the content come from? How do we plan that content? Well, it's about what do Canadians want, need, and expect from CBC? What kind of content should we be creating to deliver on our public service mandate? Then we have to think about how do we actually create that content? And that is about what is the best way to tell that story to Canadians? It's great we have an idea, we know what exactly Canadians want, but what are the mechanisms through which we tell that story in the most effective way possible? Then we have to think about how do we manage that content? Where does it live internally? How is it organized? How does the entire organization that is meant to serve the entire country manage and coordinate all this content that we're creating on a daily basis? And we're creating this content from across the country. So we've got our bureaus in Ottawa, and Toronto, and Montreal, but then we're also in different regions as well. And then we have to think about how do we distribute this content? Where is this going to live? And so where is this content going to be available to Canadians? And then how do Canadians discover this content? And then how do they actually consume it? So what is the actual experience of actually absorbing this content? Is it a video? But what does that video experience look like? Is it a news article? What does that article experience look like? Is it a live blog? What does that feel like? Is it photos? And is it comments? You know, user-generated content is also content that we create, that we support. So all these different ways we have to think about what is the actual experience of finally when the content is in the hands of our audience, how do they actually absorb it and make the most of it so that the intentions that we had when we were planning it are actually fulfilled. And then we have to think about archiving our content. How do we make sure that we store this content in a way that is always accessible and available to Canadians? Because it is for them. And it's also a shared history that we're building together, right? And there's a whole lot of other decisions that I didn't really want to bring it up, But those are also very critical, like content licensing. How do we go and license off to other organizations who also want access to CBC's content? There's measurement, which is a huge part of assessing and validating some of the themes that came up when Brittany was talking about how a lot of us talk about customer centricity. How do we go evaluate the worthiness of the content? Did it do what we intended for it to do? But those are the kind of key elements that we have to think about, and that's what connectivity means to us, right? And that's what it means being customer-centric, is that all the organization, whether or not they see themselves serving Canadians directly, are all part of one aspect or the other. So somebody who's working down deep in archives and libraries, categorizing and organizing our content, they are actively involved in how we shape and structure the content that's available to Canadians. And we have to think about how do we make sure that it's future-proof and it's still available, right? Someone who's focusing on how do we distribute it to our off-platforms, like different news aggregators that people use on a daily basis, that they still know this great content's coming from CBC, but it's there where they want them. So Google News, things like that. So they might not feel directly involved in delivering customer experience, but they actually are, and that's what connectivity feels like. Making sure everyone who's part of the organization understands that how we're actually laddering up to that intended outcome that we want, and how do we actually deliver on that public service mandate. So let's talk a little bit about why this matters and why this connectivity matters. And this quote really resonates with me, is that services that are created in silos are actually experienced in bits. And that's what we don't want, right? Is that we want people to have a very seamless experience, way of experiencing CBC. So meet Sabrina. This is her Olympics experience. So she was hanging out with some friends and at a restaurant when a commercial came on promoting CBC's Olympic broadcast. And one of her friends is like, "Are you going to watch the Olympics?" And she's like, "Probably not. Maybe the opening ceremonies. Those are always kind of fun." So we already know that she's not really that interested right from the beginning, right? Then her friend's like, "Well, when is it?" "It's tomorrow." "Oh, that's too bad. I'm in New York for the next couple of days, so I guess I'll miss it." "That's too bad." She was scrolling through her Facebook and noticed an article by CBC that said, "Canadians can take the games anywhere with free CBC Olympics app." She's like, "Oh, sweet. Okay, that's kind of cool." So she downloaded the app, and then she went off to her trip. And then she found the live stream, so finally when she had some time to watch the opening ceremony when it was about to be aired, she found the live stream for the opening ceremony, and then she watched 2 ads, and then she got to the error. "You're experiencing technical difficulties." So she was kind of met with this unmet expectation that the marketing message that she saw on the Facebook article was that she could see it anywhere, but it didn't mention that the article itself was geofenced and she can't access it. So she reached out to CBC on Twitter and said, "Hey, CBC, why can't I watch the opening ceremonies? My app says technical difficulties. Can you please help?" "Hi, Sabrina, we're sorry. Let's figure this out. Where are you located?" "I'm on a work trip in New York." "Oops, sorry, Sabrina. Live stream is only available in Canada." So that was one of the pain points she experienced, right? She wasn't aware that streaming was only available in Canada, so there was a bit of mixed messaging that she received. Then she's like, "Well, maybe that's kind of sucks, but I guess I'll watch it when I get home, Maybe still interested." So you're also kind of half interested by now, right? So she was expecting to find the opening ceremonies to be available on demand whenever she wanted at that point. So a few days later, she was at home, back in Toronto, and decided to play the opening ceremonies in the background while she cooked dinner. And she's like, "Why can't I find it? Now this is really frustrating." So she had some difficulties finding it on the CBC Olympic website. She couldn't find it on that site. She's like, okay, somehow she landed on our CBC Help Center and discovered that the International Olympics Committee restricts how long the full video of the opening ceremony is available, and the article suggested that she goes to check out the highlights. She's like, "Well, wish I knew that earlier, that sucks." So she wasn't aware that the opening ceremonies are only available for 2 days after the actual event happens, and you can no longer find it. At this point, she's like, "Well, I give up." So she had some trouble finding the highlights video. She didn't want to watch the ads anymore, and she's like, "No, this is not worth the trouble. I just don't really care." So a little bit that relationship that she had with the person was tarnished, right? So that's the journey that she went through. She went through, touched a few different platforms in this quest to watch the opening ceremonies. She felt a lot of different emotions, and she was thinking a lot of different things, right? Like first she's like, "Yeah, maybe I'll watch it," to "I give up," down to she was doing a lot of different actions that were kind of signals in terms of how she was moving progressively through the journey. So to the audience layer, it really doesn't matter. They want where they came from, right? But everything that happens underneath in terms of content planning, creation, management, distribution, discovery, consumption, all those layers have to work together. And that's where they have to think about the audience at first. So what appears to them is a clear journey, but really everything underneath that happens to connect it all together and deliver on that very audience-centric experience, to deliver on our public service mandate is incredibly critical. And that's what it means to us in Ireland. And that's pretty much it. So I guess that gives you a bit of context of where we're coming from, and yeah, I guess we look forward to more questions after.
Now we want to welcome up Mariam from TELUS to talk about how customer centricity can help your organization minimize risk and pivot.
All right, how do I use this? Cool. Can everyone hear me well? I'm usually pretty loud, so I don't know if I need this microphone. So my name's Mariam. Thanks for the intro, and thanks for the organizers for having me out here today, and everyone for coming out. I think there'll be a lot of great learning opportunities for everyone, including myself, from the great panelists here. So as you know, and probably why you're here at this event, is that you know that customer centricity has some benefits. And I'll be talking to one of the benefits that's especially important to us at TELUS, which is that it helps us minimize risk and it provides us opportunities to pivot. Oh, I have 2 title slides. All right, so this is a picture of our service design team. So we work with groups all across TELUS as an internal consultancy, you might want to call it, or a design thinking center of excellence. So if a team within TELUS wants to improve their customer experience, or they're going to launch a new product or service and they want to get some customer feedback, we're the team to go to. And maybe they just want to learn more about who their customer is, and we can help them with primary qualitative research to let them know what their customers are thinking. So I'll share a story. Recently, the TV team came to us, and they had an idea for a new package. Like Rogers and Bell operate here, TELUS in Western Canada offers TV services. So they had an idea for a package. It had a name, it had a price, it would have these features and these channels, and they had a bunch of spreadsheets that said, hey, this is going to be an awesome idea and it's going to make us money. So our service design team said, hey, what can we do? And we're going to get you some customer research to see what our customers think of this new idea. And you might have seen a Venn diagram like this before, and it really talks about what is the sweet spot for a new product, a new service, a new innovation, whatever your organization is working on. And that sweet spot is that intersection between something that is financially viable, so simplistically it makes you money or it reduces costs for your organization. It's something that is technically feasible. That's when your technology team says, hey, yes, we can actually deliver on this thing. And hopefully it's also desired by your end user or your customer who's going to be at the receiving end of this new product or service. So what we had heard from our TV team is, yeah, definitely going to make us some money and reduce some costs. And the tech team was excited to deliver it, and the leadership was super pumped for this idea. So we went off to go talk to some customers and understand what their content consumption habits are, why they watch TV, what are their motivations, behaviors, what's going on in the TV space for them. And we created a mock-up, a prototype of the package, and shared that with them and some other packages, and got some initial feedback, like, is this a package that resonates with you? Do you value this, and will it fit into your life? And what we heard was a resounding no, that this is not a TV package I want, this doesn't fit into what I do, and I don't want this. So that put us in an interesting spot where you now have some new customer research that says maybe what your team is working on, what your team is really excited about, what your leadership's excited to fund, maybe isn't going to resonate with our customers. So what do you do in a scenario like that? It sounds simple, hey, we should pivot. But for anyone who's been in the scenario that I'm explaining where you have some customer feedback and maybe it doesn't align with your business and technical goals, or for anyone who's seen this episode of Friends where you're trying to pivot the couch up the apartment, it's easier said than done. So I'll be sharing 5 quick tips on what to do if you find yourself in this scenario and you're trying to change the minds and hearts of your organization to choose and prioritize customer centricity even when you're competing with business and technology teams and their priorities. So one, champion the voice of the customer. So your customer doesn't come into your workplace every day, but you do. How can you be telling the stories of your customers authentically and sharing that with the widest group possible in your organization? The best thing you can do is bring your business and technology teams to the research you're doing with your customers so they can see firsthand what your customers are saying, what they're feeling, and if something doesn't resonate with them, they will be able to see that loud and clear. If that's not possible, something we do at TELUS is take video and audio recordings of the research we do, of course with customer permission, and then we can share that back with the business and technology teams, and they will feel and empathize with those customers a little bit more. While you're doing that, you have to empathize with your internal teams. When you're in a customer insights or research role, it's easy to get caught up and say, we have to do what the customer says, but you can't forget that there are competing interests and priorities of the other teams. So how do you understand and align with them? And by empathizing with them, you'll get them more on board with listening to your customer insights. And you have to present other options. So it's not enough to go do a research study, find out that customers don't like your product and come back and tell that to your organization. That's definitely not enough. How do you make sure you're asking the right questions when you have customers in the room and you're doing research to find out a little bit more? What's their experience like? What are the gaps and pain points they're experiencing? So if it's not this TV package, how can we start designing for what actually are challenges for you? Or ask your customers to be a little bit more generative. If it's not this package, what would work? So one of the activities we ran was we printed out the package for them and they were able to cross out everything that they didn't like and then put in the features and channels that they did like, and that would be their customer idea. That would be their favorite package that they would be really excited to buy. But obviously, customer ideas might not be the business ideas. If I drafted my own TV package, it would have 1 million channels and it would be free. However, that doesn't make sense from a business and technical perspective. So you, as the owner of that customer research, how are you aligning those customer ideas to organizational objectives? And since you've empathized with your internal teams and you know what metrics are important to them, how do you translate this customer idea into something that can actually make business sense? And the last one I have here, very obvious, that I think should be addressed today at this event. Get your customer feedback early and get it often. The title of this was how customer centricity helps us minimize risk, and it's really that idea of getting that customer feedback early. We really see the earlier that you're getting customer feedback, the more likely you are to pivot because you haven't put in all the risk and started moving really quickly towards this product launch. So even if your idea is just a concept, you haven't flushed it out, you don't even have mock-ups, that's fine. Can you just find a handful of customers and start understanding, does this work for them? Does this resonate with them? And understand who they are. This is a very simplified journey, definitely not as pretty as Hira's, of what it might look like when you're launching a new product or service. And the orange triangles are places where you can get customer feedback. You'll see that I've kind of put the orange triangles everywhere because they're all opportunities to get customer feedback. And again, the earlier you're getting it during the idea conception phase really provides you that opportunity to take that risk of pivoting rather than taking the risk and going all the way to market launch and then finding out what customers think. And make sure you're getting the customer feedback as you're going along the development cycle so you can continuously improve, and then after you've launched, still getting that feedback so you can improve even then. This is just a summary slide. I saw some people taking notes, so hopefully this is helpful. The reason why I'm sharing this today is because TELUS as an organization, we're also learning how to be customer-centric, being focused on customer centricity. We've had times where we've not gotten customer research and we've launched. We've had times where we've gotten customer research and our teams didn't have the courage to pivot and we launched something into market and then learned maybe the hard way. And if you're curious as to what happened to the TV team with the new package as I described, they had the courage to pivot. They realized that it was important to take into consideration this customer research and take a step back and say, how do we design for what customers are actually asking and saying and what they actually value rather than this pre-prescribed idea of what we thought they wanted from a business and technical lens. And I think that's the most exciting part of being in a role as a designer or as a customer insights or customer research role, is when you start to see people on your business and technology teams also taking to heart the ideas and thoughts of customers and starting to design for them and with them. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And now we've got Rubén, the Senior User Experience Researcher here from Shopify.
Hello? Fantastic. Okay, so I just started thinking about this title. It was like partnering with the customer support team to impact the design process. And I thought this is quicker. So it's a case study, it's a Guru's week, and I'm going to explain a little bit what I meant with this. So first of all, I wanted to start with what Shopify thinks of customer centricity. And we do a lot of things, actually. So one of the things that we are doing, this is our mission, that is make commerce better for everyone. So that is already telling us, okay, humans, the people, is in the middle of everything, right? So this is, starting from here, we have some values. There is the core values that one of them is actually be merchant obsessed. And you can see this is like a small label that is actually saying that it's a Shopify value. And we have multiple of them around the office. So you can actually, if you have the opportunity to look around, you might see these labels. These labels are coming from products from merchants that are using Shopify. So it's a constant reminder that we are working for them. This is another thing. So we were talking at the beginning of the session about the onboarding process that we have at Shopify. And during the onboarding, we have 3 days where we are learning about the disciplines, how we are working in Shopify, different things. She is Lindsay Thornton, she is the VP of UX, and this is kind of one of the things that we are seeing actually during the research explanation, when we are talking about UX research. And we are saying that there is a risk of having a very far front line with the rest of the company. So when that happens, when the majority of the team that is working in a company is very far from the front line, you are losing that touch. You are losing the possibility of innovating or creating something new that is actually meeting the needs of your customers. So in order to reduce that front line or that distance with the front line, what we are doing is a number of things. So all of these things are initiatives that are happening within Shopify. Something? Losing the, okay. So these are all initiatives that are happening within Shopify, and it's allowing people that are working in Shopify to do multiple things to get that sense of what are the customers, who are they, how are they feeling, how are they doing things. But this is not research. All of this is just building empathy, is showing you examples of some of these merchants that we have, but it's not about research. For doing research, we have a team of researchers. So we have more than 70 researchers working in Canada. Now we have 1 researcher in Berlin, and we are looking for another researcher in Singapore. So you know anyone in there, let me know. And in here is not UX researchers, there are market researchers, there are support research, there are data scientists. So with all that information, what we are trying to do is having a very good sense of what is happening with the customers that we have. Anytime that we are doing research, we invite the rest of the team, so they have the possibility of observing, shadowing us, learning with us, different things. But I was saying it's a case study, so I'm going to explain one of these initiatives that I was running with my team. So it's very personal. I think no one is doing it in Shopify in the same way, but I think it's working. So that's why I'm sharing it. So this is Guru's week. So my product team, that is the marketing technology team, at the beginning of the year, they were doing a big concept ideation. So there was a big risk because it was an internal ideation. It was all the team working in multiple iterations internally without any external feedback. So that was a risk. And in order to reduce that risk, we have an ideal situation. But it would be merchants. So you are talking with any researcher, they are going to immediately say, okay, you need to use merchants, you need to use your users, so you will be reducing that kind of risk. But it's difficult. Logistics are taking a long time, right? So if you're a researcher, probably you have heard about research ops. So it's the operations, the time that it's taking, the resources that it's taking just to have the right people that can tell you things related with your product. So that takes time, and we didn't have it. So what can we do? In the meantime, so definitely we wanted to have these merchants, these users with us and learning from them. But in the meantime, what do we have? We have gurus. That is our frontline staff. So it's our, I will say that it's not customer service because they are doing many other things. So what gurus do is customer service, technical service, and also they are doing business development for our clients. So when a merchant have a problem, they are going to call a guru, or they are going to send an email. They're probably going to have a question for them, but then the guru is going to ask them, okay, how are you doing with your business? And they are learning from them what are the challenges, what are the pain points that they have, what are their frustrations and needs. So they have a lot of information about the merchants already, and we were not using this. So the idea was, okay, what about breaking those silos, allowing to have these conversations during our iterations of design, and bringing that information into our product team. But also at the same time, we were allowing them to see what are we working on, what is going to be the next feature that we are going to release, what is the kind of products that we are thinking about. So they are going to have heads up about those things as well. So we are working, I'm not sure if you are working on sprints, but this is kind of the process that we are working on. So we have sprints of 2 weeks, and the idea, as I was saying, is having merchants. That was the initial idea. It's research. This is not UX research. It's a different thing. But on the meantime, we could iterate with that information and making it better, right? Okay, so what type of feedback are we looking for when we are doing these kind of things? It's not the same as talking with a customer that we have, a real user that we have. It's a different thing. So we encourage them to think about all the previous experiences that they have had. What were the problems that they were trying to solve for our clients? Trying to think about those things, put them already in the mode of responding some of the questions that I have. And I'm going to show you 3 examples of those questions. So the first one is how you had to help merchants understand products that are similar to this one. So when we are asking these questions, they are immediately thinking, okay, if you are going to use that data, they are going to ask me these questions. If you are not using this definition, then they are going to call me in order to find out what is going on. So it's a different style of doing UX research, so the information that we will receive from customers. Second one, how will you describe this product to a merchant? So something that they are doing on a daily basis is explaining the products and services that we have to other people. So they are the best in order to, okay, digest all the information that they have in front of them and explain it to someone else. So the idea is using that information can help the content strategy team that we have in order to have better descriptions, for example. Another question, and this is the last one that I'm showing, what type of calls would you receive if we are releasing the product as it is? So this is already expectation. This is a really tough one because we are asking them to put them in the move of the future. It's something that you are not doing ever with a user, but this is a different thing. So with the experience that they have, they can anticipate some of the questions that people may have about the products that we have. So what type of feedback we are not looking for? So there is very difficult for some of the gurus that we have not to talk about the interface. So we are not looking for that. We don't want them to tell us if we need to use a Dropbox or a radio button or no, we are not interested in that. It's a different thing. But still, we are receiving some information about that. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. Anyways, how do we use this information? So I wanted to say it's multiple more things, but I'm going to say just 3 things. So one is gurus help us to anticipate problems, and this is fantastic because in the iteration before actually showing it to a merchant, we are already doing some kind of risk assessment of what is our product, right? The second one is we define better our products and our features, so it's easier for merchants to understand afterwards. And the last one, This is something that I found super interesting. It's making clear the value proposition of the products that we are releasing. So they are able to understand, digest the product that we want to release, and explain it to someone else. They know if that is going to be valuable for someone else. So this is very valuable for the team. Is this all? Yep. So Gurus, as I was saying, doesn't replace doing research with merchants. So with merchants, we are looking for another type of research, but it's a proxy user. They have a lot of information, and we should be using it. It's part of the team. They are part of the team. I'm not sure if you were able to read all the different initiatives that we have in there, but one is called Bridge the Gap. So we are reversing the bridge. What we are doing is allowing the gurus that are every day answering questions to understand our product process and understanding how we are going to deliver, how we are going to create our roadmap. So they are going to have a head start. And that is not only motivating for them, it's also that it's helping them to explain merchants what is coming. And that is very useful as well. And the final thing is that it's continuing the conversation. And it's also very interesting because what we are allowing with this space is because they already know what we are working on, they can send us the questions or the problems or the needs that they are identifying on these merchants that they are working with every single day, and we can learn from that. We can even do research with that specific merchant, for example. So this is also very, very useful. So basically what I wanted to share today was this case study. There are multiple opportunities for doing these kind of things with the teams that you have, even if you don't have user researchers with you. This is something that anyone can do with a customer service support, and some of the things that you can get from it. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, and lastly we have Pansy Lee from Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment.
All right, thanks for having me. I'm Pansy. I lead the product design team at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. For those of you who don't know, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, we own the Toronto Maple Leafs, Raptors, TFC, Argos, and the concert business at Scotiabank Arena, Budweiser Stage, and a couple of other venues. So I wanted to talk about innovating on the fan experience. And I wanted to start off with what our mission is. Oh, my slide. Anyways, so our mission is to bring the world to its feet. And so there is a right way to do that by winning championships. But then there's the wrong way to bring our fans to their feet. Standing in line is definitely the wrong way to bring our fans to their feet. So as you can see, this was a problem that was really, really obvious that we needed to solve. It didn't take a genius to figure this out. And so while there's lots of research methods to uncover customer problems, there's one research method that I wanted to talk about in specific, and that is the power of observation. So this is, as we walked around the arena, this was like one of the concerts where I think it might have been Ariana Grande, and it was almost like a quarter of the arena. It was just massive. And when you think about observation, it can kind of feel really difficult. Like, how do you go out and meet your customers where they are? And it may sound easy for us because we have an enclosed space where we trap our fans for a couple of hours while they watch a show or watch a game, and we can actually observe them. But what I wanted to share is it's actually something that you can do in every industry. So I wanted to share, I worked at a company where we did this for personal finance. We went out to customers' homes and we tried to understand how they track their payments and manage their budgets. We also did it for small business accounting. We would go out to our small businesses and get in touch with them and try and understand what their day-to-day was like. And in this case, we were trying to understand like how they were billing their clients. And I actually did it in healthcare as well. I worked for a software company where we built healthcare software. And what I did was me and like a product manager, we literally like sat in the corner and watched them work for 8 hours. And one of the things that we noticed was this little button that's under the desk, and it's actually a panic button to call security because they work in a patient complaint office, and someone who's coming in to complain about their care is probably really pissed off. And this was during a time when workplace violence was a real big thing. And because of the software that we built, like in a customer interview, this is probably something that would never come up, and that it's something that you kind of notice if you actually take the time to observe them in their kind of natural habitat. So we took the observations that we saw when we were walking around the arena and really trying to understand our customers' journey in our ecosystem. And we started to map out what their customer journey was like across what their experience was like pre-show, on the event day, what are they doing after. And we ended up coming up with a Scotiabank Arena app where our fans can actually browse what shows are coming up, but more importantly, to solve that problem of lines, we created an app where they can order their concert merchandise ahead of time and kind of pick it up on the way in, so they're not standing in line and they can go out and have a drink or get ready for the show, go to the bathroom. And we launched it at the KISS concert. I'm wearing the KISS concert t-shirt. I bought it through the app. It's very important to use your own products so you understand what the pain points are. So as people were peeling off the line, we wanted to understand what their experience was like using our new products. And this little girl was like, it was excellent, it's so convenient. Every time you go to concerts, you stand in line for 7 million years. So we're really glad that we saved her 7 million years. And another story was another couple that was coming off the line. She was like, oh, I'm gonna tell my friend in New York who's going to the KISS concert, and we just didn't have the heart to tell her that she wasn't gonna be available, but so. One thing we did learn though was that one size doesn't fit all. So we have a very similar product set for both our games and for our concerts. So for concerts and games, you can order food and beverage to your seat, and you can also order merchandise if you want. We have the same experiences for our concert business. But what's interesting is for games, food and beverage is like wildly successful, and our retail or pre-ordering service is like very, very tiny. And then it's the complete opposite for our concert business. Merchandise ordering is like massive, and then food and beverage for some reason is really, really tiny. So we're still digging into why that is, but that was definitely something we learned and we found really interesting, that one size doesn't fit all. So my 3 takeaways, if you don't remember anything else, is to get out of the office and go actually see your customers in their natural environments, observe them doing the things that you're asking them to do, and that one size doesn't fit all.
All right, thank you, everyone. So we are just going to take a quick break before we start our panel. So there's some more food out if you haven't had a chance to eat it yet. But